Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lethal Venom podcast. This is the podcast where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. And today I have a special guest with me. I have Mr. Douglas Fifer. He is the retired police officer. So if I do anything illegal, he can't arrest me. So it's an honor to have him on. We're just going to do like a little bit of a background into him and do a little Q&A about what it was like being a police officer. So Mr. Pfeiffer, I really appreciate you being on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And while I can't arrest you, no, I still have friends that probably could arrest you.
Okay. Well, you
That's a
don't know
joke,
my.
of course. For your audience, we got to have a little humor here.
hmm So, tell me about um a little bit about yourself and just a little bit of what you do.
Yeah, so I was born in Homer, Alaska, a really small town, about 5,000 people. I grew up in Anchorage, though, and in 1996, I joined the Anchorage Police Department as a patrol officer and kind of worked my way up through the ranks, different specialty teams, doing different assignments. Did 25 years as a police officer before retiring, retired in 2021. And then when I retired, I wanted to write a true crime book, but I wanted it to be a little bit different than the normal true crime. So it's not that serial killers aren't cool or robbers and things like that, but nobody had ever really written a book on sexual deviancy. And some of these weird, wild cases obviously happen a lot in Alaska, but they happen everywhere in the lower 48, the world. So I put together the book called 50 Shades of True Crime, Sex, Drugs, and Killer Kink. And it's every bit of all that. These are actual documented cases from the law enforcement officer's perspective, which is mine. So you get all the details on these extreme fetishes, which for most people, they might know they exist, but some of them in there, I guarantee you that your listening audience doesn't know exist. So I wrote the book post-retirement because I thought they were very interesting cases and much different, and it's done very well to date.
Tell me a little bit about why you became a cop and it was it something that you always wanted to do?
Yeah, as a little kid, I my dad's side of the family was from Maryland, so I remember going back there and I met a Maryland state trooper. I presume he was a trooper in uniform at the baseball stadium, and we were just looking at the stadium. In Alaska, we don't have any pro sports, so your large stadiums that seat 70,000 people are fascinating to Alaskans because we have smaller cities. So we couldn't go to the game. We didn't have tickets, but this trooper let us in this back security gate because we're from Alaska. He thought that was cool with my dad. So I always looked at him like kind of like a superhero, and I was like, boy, maybe when I'm older, that's something I want to do. And so that kind of started it. I looked into law enforcement. I joined in '96, like I said, but I wanted something that was had a lot of adrenaline, that changed, that was fun and exciting as a profession, and it was every bit of that and more.
What was the, I guess, moment that was it hard becoming a cop or what's the process of becoming a cop?
You apply, and back when I applied, there's about 5,000 applicants for 28 positions. So your pool is very large with qualified applicants. Harder to recruit nowadays, but back then it was fairly easy to recruit law enforcement officers. So you go through a real strict process to get there. You're finally, if you're selected in the 28, which I was, you go to a police academy. It's about 4 months. So you go 5 days a week for 4 months. You train, you learn laws, firearms, everything related to police. And then if you graduate the academy, then you go into field training. And you go with the field training officer for a month at a time, and you'll have 3 or 4 field training officers. So 3.5, 4 months is your commitment. So all told, you're in close to a year of training before you're either cut loose or you're not. Some officers don't make it because it's a very difficult job. You have to multitask, and that's nothing against them. They just it's a job that's difficult. And those that do make it, then you're put out on your own as a rookie, and you start usually in patrol, and then you can work your way into specialty teams or whatever assignments you want from there.
Did you have to travel or have you just stayed fully in Alaska?
Alaska is pretty cool. Anchorage, I mean, you're certified statewide, but you work in, your town or municipality that you're assigned to, which is Anchorage. I served as a hostage negotiator for many, many years as my specialty. So I would have to travel outside of Anchorage for hostage situations. We had the largest team, the most effective team. Realistically, law enforcement outside of Alaska was non-existent unless we were going to pick up a criminal. There was a similar case where the suspect had evaded out of Alaska. We'd have to fly down. But really, our jurisdiction ended in Alaska. Lots of training with other agencies outside of state, but not very limited as far as law enforcement we held within our state.
You mentioned about you were a hostage negotiator at first. What's that like?
coolest job you could ever have. I think that I tried a lot of different things in the police department, crime scene, everything. I worked details and different units, but I always loved being a hostage negotiator. I think part of it is having the natural gift of gab to be able to talk to people, to calm them down, to find common ground. So it came natural for me, and I was good at it. So I progressed and eventually became our team leader. Typically, a team consists of 5 people. You'll have a primary negotiator. That's the one, let's say, Noah, that you were the suspect. That's the one that they would talk to. The secondary negotiator would listen to every word that's said and help the primary negotiator in case he or she missed something. Because it's very intense when you're in those conversations. We have a tertiary negotiator. They're in charge of intel. So everything about your life, Noah, we would find out, whether it's social media, jobs, partners, family, politics. I want military service, medications, mental health. I want to know everything about you because that's very critical to the negotiation. And then we would have a fourth negotiator that would assist everyone else, and then a team leader, which such as myself, which would be the conduit with our command, our SWAT teams, chief of police, things like that, to make sure that we're all on the same page. Nobody's storming in, nobody's going in without our permission. So it's a whole team process. Very important because lives are at stake during negotiations. So you have to follow those steps. It's critically important. It's mentally taxing, but a lot of fun. You're almost playing a chess match with that suspect.
Lord, it's like y'all could tell me how many red blood cells I have. So, what is it about Alaska why so many criminals go there?
It's a great question. I don't know that I have a solid answer. I can give you my thoughts on it. Is Alaska is known as the land of the free, independent. We're very open, a lot of landmass, not large cities like the lower 48. So I think what it does, it draws kind of those people on the fringe up to Alaska thinking that they can be free, do whatever they want. Perhaps maybe thinking that we don't have sophisticated police departments or law enforcement, which is absolutely not the case. And so they come up because they think, especially serial killers, which we have the most per capita. I think their idea is that there's so much land space that they can effectively kill somebody and hide the body and it's never found. As you know, in law enforcement, if you don't have a body, it's very difficult to have an investigation. Not impossible, but difficult. So I think that's some of the draws. Alaska is so unique in their independence that people gravitate towards it, thinking that, if they were kind of an odd duck somewhere else, they might fit in Alaska. But they continue the criminal behavior and eventually, God willing, are caught.
What's been one of the craziest cases you've ever had to cover?
Well, I think one of the most intense was I negotiated with a serial killer named Joshua Wade. He had committed a homicide in Anchorage, and juries, like juries sometimes do, eventually acquitted him of the homicide. He was certainly good for the homicide, but the prosecutors and the evidence wasn't appropriate enough to garner the conviction. We knew he would kill again. About 4 years later, he committed an additional homicide. There was a large manhunt for him in our town and virtually across the state. About 4 days into that, officers were in a chase with him. He broke into an apartment complex and took several people hostage. That's when I was called out to negotiate one-on-one with a serial killer. Very intense negotiation, but ultimately I wanted the two hostages to come out unharmed, and then we would deal with him. We were able to do that with my team over the course of some time and get him out. Interesting on that case is he was subsequently convicted of that homicide, admitted to the original homicide, and then admitted to multiple other homicides. I contacted that individual post-retirement in prison because I knew he was good for a lot of additional murders, where we have about 7 hours of audio tapes where we discuss and walk through some of those murders where he further admits details to some of these crimes he committed. Now, he was already incarcerated for 100 plus years. But really, my job at that point is to get closure for families, try and solve some of these unsolved homicides. So that was an interesting twist where I talked to him as a negotiator, and then post law enforcement, I talked to him well as a civilian, as a hostage negotiator and a serial killer.
Has there been a case that's been so tough, not only to you, but the whole department, to where it makes you not want to be a cop anymore?
I think for me personally, and I probably can speak for a lot of law enforcement, is any crimes involving children or kids kind of freezes and maps in your brain in perpetuity. And it's not that adult homicides are bad to deal with or adult crimes aren't bad to deal with. Those are difficult as well, but you can work through that process. But when an innocent child or a baby is injured, murdered, or violently, assaulted, that's very difficult for law enforcement to process. Many of us have our own children, so you kind of correlate that with your own personal life. So I would say that's the biggest thing is anything involving kids was always really difficult for me. And in discussions with my coworkers, I think it's the same.
What's been some of the best and worst memories that you have from your career?
I think the best memories are just working with the community. I mean, being a cop's a lot of fun. Things change. You go to community councils, you go to coffee shops. Anchorage is a fairly small town comparatively. So it's not that I know everybody in the city, but I know most of them. So it's kind of a family environment where you're saying hi to people and you're having a lot of fun. And even more importantly, it's satisfying putting away criminals that prey upon the community who are your friends, family, and just members of society. So it was always very rewarding to lock somebody up that was a predator that specifically looked out to harm people in our community. I always took great satisfaction in that because you're going to protect others from being harmed. That was the best part of it. The worst part of it is it's a dangerous profession, and in your career, it's very likely that you'll lose a coworker, a partner, somebody that died in the line of duty. Always crushing. They made the ultimate sacrifice. I always honor that in my heart, and always remember those individuals because it's not an easy job, and they go out day in and day out. I always support Back the Blue. I'm very law enforcement supportive, and that's obvious because of my career. But 99% of your cops are good people who do a perfect job out in society. We all have the 1% in professions that you see maybe on YouTube or social media, but that is certainly far exaggerated. So I think that's the worst part of it. But the best part is that community involvement. You just feel like part of your community, involved. You make a lot of friends. You have a lot of good memories throughout your career.
I see a lot of like good cops down here, but with Alabama, it depends really on where you live. Because I live in Auburn, I live more in a downtown city, and with 50,000 students that live here, our police are on it. But yeah, I come from a very small town, like farm town, and even when we've had situations there, it's like they take 50 minutes to get there when they're just 5 minutes down the road, and it's just like it's a big difference of like how some cops are and some aren't. I don't want to shit talk any of them, but
Sure.
because I'm very much back the blue, I think a lot of them get hate for no reason. I watch a lot of body cam videos on YouTube and
Yeah.
like arrests and all that, and it's interesting to see like how some police departments treat others and whatnot. Have you had any scenario that's garnered national attention that where the lower 48 states have covered it on world news or even have like international news cover?
Yeah, I think if you're talking from criminal standpoint, a lot of our serial killers certainly get state and national coverage. I mean, these are some horrific perpetrators on society. So serial killers we're famous for in Alaska. It's not a good thing to be famous for, but we are. As far as, or are you talking internally like a department issue?
More like criminal or just like have you had a news story from your department go international or nationally?
Yeah, we solved one serial killer. His name was Israel Keys. There's many documentaries on Hulu, Netflix about this individual. He was quite unique. While he lived in Alaska, he would travel outside of Alaska to commit his homicides. The reason being, it's much more difficult to solve them. If you kill at home where you're from, it's easier for law enforcement to solve that case. He was so planned and organized. He'd fly to Chicago, bury a coffee can with cash, a gun, fly back home, then refly back down, rent a car with cash, drive across the country, commit homicides. What ended up happening is he committed multiple of these in lower 48. When we interviewed him, he knew he should never kill in Alaska, but it's kind of like a brain disease. He couldn't help himself. So he did commit a homicide in Alaska. He kidnapped a coffee barista, sexually assaulted her, and then ultimately killed her. And that's how we got on the case to solve it. And then we subsequently looked at all these other homicides across the US. In his interview, he admitted he didn't have the self-control anymore to not kill in Alaska. He knew he shouldn't, but the brain took over. It was too powerful for him. So he's a unique serial killer that made national news. There's books written about it. He's quite famous, probably killed in the range of 11 to 12. He committed suicide in jail, so we'll never know the full account of his homicides. That's certainly a famous case. There's many other famous serial killers from Alaska.
Earlier you talked about how you've had to deal with sexual offenders and had to deal with criminals like that. Tell me about the psyche behind deviant sexual offenders.
Yeah, what I've learned in 25 years is while we all know that sex is physical, it's biological, there's no question about that. For these suspects and perpetrators who inflict these crimes on others, it's purely about power. And I discuss that in my book on the psyche of those individuals. It's literally a power trip. I mean, there is the biological aspect of it, but when they're doing these acts, they get euphoria in their mind. It's not the physical, they just get it purely because they're doing it and they're overpowering this individual. So that's where they come from is it's a power perspective. It's not necessarily just purely biological.
So, talking about your book, as you said that you wrote 50 Shades of True Crime, it was a book that you had wrote after you retired. What was the main reason for the book?
Well, in my career, I would tell these stories, or I would tell stories about serial killers or robberies in our local community. But friends, family, or associates would always ask, well, what's the weirdest crime you've ever worked? And so I'd explain a few more, and they'd be like, no, something like sexual deviant or something like that. That's what the community always had additional questions on. They wanted to dive into the real dark side of society. And it's more a fascination from the public. It's not that they wanted to participate in it, they just wanted to know a really weird story. So then I would pivot to these sexual deviant stories with these weird fetishes. These might be businessmen, these might be your next door neighbor, these might be your best friend that commits it. And you have no idea they're doing it. And they were always fascinated and wanted more and more questions, more and more stories. So I thought to myself, this would be a great book post law enforcement because there's nothing else out there like it that goes into real true crime on the sexual fetish side of society, whether it's businessmen, anything like that. So I cover that all in my book, and that's, I think, why people are fascinated with it.
Do you have any more true crime books coming or
Yeah, what was interesting is I did a podcast a while back, and I talked through several serial killer cases. One that I negotiated with that I explained earlier, and then I was contacted by a film company in Hollywood that may be interested in doing like a docu-series on that. So that is my second book. It's about the serial killers in Alaska, temporarily put on hold pending this docu-series. We'll see how that pans out if one of the networks picks it up. And then the book will come second. But certainly there'll be more books. And I think the following ones will be more specific on a serial killer or serial killers in Alaska. We have a bunch of them, so it'd be a fascinating book to write.
streaming service? Be listening up. Take his show.
Yeah.
So to kind of wrap some things up, can you give the audience some tips for protecting themselves in everyday life from sexual predators or just from people that may come off as dangerous to them?
Yeah, I love that question. And I used to teach the Citizens Academy. And what the Citizens Academy is just a group of local residents that come and learn about police work. You go in the evening, and then officers and investigators come in and teach them. That question would come up often. And what I would tell them in my experience is always follow your gut. I tell my kids this. So if something feels wrong, it probably is. In most of the crimes that I investigated, when I interviewed victims, if they survived, they would always say, I knew something was weird. I knew it was off. I knew I shouldn't trust that person. I knew I shouldn't go into the dark parking garage late at night because it seemed eerie. Almost always they knew something before it happened. And I'm not saying that's 100% of the time, but boy, if you follow your gut and your intuition, if you feel like you're in a bad situation, get yourself out of it. Don't stay there thinking it's not going to happen to you. Just remove yourself. Ask somebody to come with you. Call somebody. The police are there for you. So follow your gut. It sounds very simple, but you'd be surprised on how often people don't do it.
It's funny you say that because recently I actually heard of someone that on campus, I was did some kind of group therapy, and I remember we had a girl come in there, and she said that this guy made her uncomfortable, and we asked her, I said, "Did you like tell campus security? Did you call the police about it?" And she said no, and I thought,
Yep.
"Ma'am," I thought I was like, "Ma'am," so
Happens all the time.
confused. I was so confused, and then. I thought that was a perfect opportunity. So I'm always like you. And I actually recorded an episode recently about like a solo one where I confessed it that it kind of makes me like a pet peeve I have of someone that doesn't stand up for themselves and just say something. I fully said in that podcast, I said, don't put it under the carpet. Don't put it to the side. Just tell someone immediately. I don't care if it's a plant. I don't care if it's a person, an animal. Tell someone, don't keep it bottled up because that's the worst thing that's going to happen because it'll eat you alive.
Yeah, I agree. And for your listeners, the police department are there to work for our citizens, you. So it doesn't, if you have information, it never hurts to call the police department and give them the information. It may turn out that it's not important, it's not relevant. There was no murder or suspect that's going to do anything, but it never hurts. We never get too much information. What happens from a police department aspect is you don't get enough information. So from citizens out there, when you see something, if it's late at night, you see somebody going through yards or neighborhood, call the police, let us come out. Don't go out yourself so you're safe. We'll come out, contact that person and see if it's on the up and up or if it's not, or whatever scenario. So feel free to call the police department. Now, if it's a non-emergency, call the regular number. You don't have to dial 911, but call and just give the information. Crime Stoppers has emails. You can do it a variety of ways. But I find a lot of the times that society either doesn't want to bug the department, they don't think it's important enough. Let us make that decision. Let us protect you. We want that information. So feel free to call.
I've had instances where I've accidentally called 911 and it wasn't my fault, it was my phone's fault. I literally for like a split second dialed it for some reason because I think the iPhone had like that new button thing where you could press it and it called it and I was like and then they called right back and I was like, "Oh, don't send the cops after me." I
Yep,
said, "Don't."
we're always going to call back because we never know. We get that with the kids a lot, where they dial 911. We have to go to the house, knock on the door, the parents answer, and lo and behold, the kid not dial 911, just playing around with the phone. It's all good. We'll come out and check. There's no problem there.
Oh, that's bad. That happened like 2 years ago and I'm like 21.
It happens.
Lastly, for what advice do you have for students that are wanting to become a cop or want to follow the dream? What advice do you have for them?
Well, the first comment I'll make, it's one of the best, most rewarding careers you could ever do. It's changing. There's lots of specialties within a department, whether you want to work homicide, robberies, crime scene. You can do pretty much whatever you want in law enforcement. So that's the first cool thing is it's not a normal job. It's very rewarding and satisfying. Secondly, is I highly recommend, and I talk about this in my book, is there's police ride-along programs in almost every law enforcement jurisdiction in the United States. That's where citizens can go and they can ride with an actual cop, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, whatever you want on a shift to kind of see what police work's about. Because I think it's eye-opening for citizens to ride with a cop and realize how busy it is for law enforcement and what they see day to day. Remember, we don't go to nice calls most of the time. 95% of the time, there's a crisis, somebody needs help, that's what you're going to. And so you're a problem solver. You have to fix that. You have to protect people. But go on the ride along first and see if you like it. Join citizens academies. They're all throughout our nation. You can learn more about being a police officer and then decide if you want to apply and go down that path as a career. Again, I loved it. It may be unique to the individual, but I don't know what else is much more rewarding than going out into your community each and every day, working for citizens, protecting them. Uh, I loved every minute of it. I highly encourage your listeners, if they're interested in law enforcement whatsoever, contact your local department, do a ride along the first step and see what you think.
For people that want to check you out and want to learn more information, where can they find you?
You can find me at dougfifer.com. That's just Doug, DOUGFIFER.com. You can actually watch the book trailer for 50 Shades of True Crime. So you can kind of preview it to see if you like it or not. Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, it's on audiobook, ebook, whatever format you like to listen or read from, it's there. The book's extremely popular, has done very well. So if you like true crime, but you want to read something a little different with a twist and find out what the freakiest fetishes on planet Earth are, that's the book for you. Again, it's raw and intense. I don't leave anything out. So readers beware.
Well, I appreciate you so much for coming on today and talking about it. I always have been fascinated in it. I wouldn't want to be a cop because I know I couldn't do it, but just watching it be done has always been fascinating to me. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Well, no, I appreciate you having me. And thanks to all the law enforcement that protect us each and every day.
Uh, Thank you. So I wanted to also thank Douglas for coming onto the show today. This is just kind of me wrapping things up. I forgot to mention it while he was on the interview, but all of his links and information about him in the book will be listed in the description box below. So you can have a chance to go back and look at it when you get the chance. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That might be one of my favorite interviews I've done. It went very well. It was such an interesting conversation and something I always knew about, but there'll probably be a warrant out for my arrest now. So, anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the episode and hope you learned some new stuff today about being a police officer. If you want to stay up to date about new episodes when they'll be released, make sure to follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It's everywhere. If there's a podcast place, it's probably there. If not, the main ones I use are Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, YouTube, and that might be the main ones right so far. I also have two other podcasts, Lethal for Music Talks. It's a music podcast where I talk about music and do deep dives, and technically the best place for you to find new music. I also have a book podcast called Southern Reads. If you know someone that loves to read or you like to read, I highly recommend checking out that podcast. It's just me ranting about books. Social media, if you want to keep tabs on me, you can follow me on Instagram at The Noah Show. That's my personal one on Instagram and TikTok. The Noah Show with 3 W's at the end. As well as for the podcast, it's Lethal Venom Pod on our Lethal Venom podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Make sure to stay there to get updates about when new episodes are posting, and as well as surveys. There was no survey today due to us having a guest. I did not have time to make a survey, so the surveys will be for probably another episode coming along. Let's see. If you have any emails or any ideas for episodes you'd like for me to do, you're more than welcome to go to my email and email me about it. lethalvenompod@gmail.com. Just email me what you're emailing about, so I'll be able to decipher what you're talking about, and so I don't get confused. Also, another thing, lastly, if you could just help give a rating for the podcast. I know I hate asking for it, but I think if you leave a review or just a rating, like a 5-star rating, and be honest with the podcast, so don't just give me 5 stars. I mean, I'd like it, but I want you to be honest in your review as well. So, yeah, if you leave a review or a rating, that would really help the show. I think that's all I have for you guys today. I do want to thank, lastly again, Mr. Fifer, Doug. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about being a law enforcement officer. And if you are wanting to become a police officer or whatnot, again, all of his information be down below. I want to thank everyone for listening, and I will see you all in the next episode of Lethal Venom.